Hi, my name is Madison Vojta. This is my final project for Anatomy 202 lab, and this is on celiac disease. A quick introduction, celiac disease is a digestive and immune disorder, and it's caused when gluten is ingested, and the nutrient absorption of the small intestine is really what is interfered with because the microvilli start to atrophy and break down. So we'll see this photo on the right-hand side where there's healthy villi with long finger-like projections, and the mucosal layer can have lots of nutrient absorption. And then on the right-hand side of that photo, the celiac disease shortened and atrophied microvilli that cannot absorb nutrients nearly as easily. And this is genetic and triggered onsets of the disease that we'll go over. There's lots of different symptoms for celiac in children. Some important ones are abdominal pain and bloating, diarrhea, vomiting, constipation, but also failure to thrive is one of the number one things. In adults, bloating, iron deficiency, anemia, that's one of the main links to celiac is iron deficiency anemia. We also see a lot of osteoporosis, osteopenia, and peripheral neuropathy. This photo in the middle shows the duodenum. This area of the alimentary canal is important because this is where a lot of celiac disease villi are damaged, and this is where we'll take a biopsy typically because that's where the food is immediately hitting the small intestine, so the gluten is causing the immune response right there in the duodenum. The cause is because of gluten, which is in wheat, rye, barley, and other grains. Gliadin is a component of it, and that binds to IgA. They cross the lamina propria, and that's what's going to cause an immune response where T helper cells, B cells, and killer CD8 T cells are going to come in. And non-classical triggers are pregnancy, surgery, childbirth, viral infection, and stress, and those factors are still being studied as to why those trigger the onset of celiac. Prevalence in the US is about 1 in 133, which is quite high. An estimated 3 million Americans have it, but 83% are assumed to be misdiagnosed or undiagnosed, and it takes about 6 to 10 years, which is quite a while because other gastrointestinal diseases have really similar symptoms. Distribution worldwide, about 1.4% of the population has it in terms of blood tests that we found, but 0.7% have it with biopsy tests. And in North America, 0.5% of North America makes up those numbers. Females and children, the rates are even higher, and it also depends on location, which we can see the prevalence in this map on the top right. Severity, so if you catch it early on, it's gonna be a better outcome because you can start a gluten-free diet earlier on. And if you don't, then malabsorption of nutrients is gonna be affected, as well as vitamins. And anemia can be an onset later on, intestinal cancers, infertility, and just other risks for other diseases. And if it's not caught early on, there is a fatality rate of 10 to 30% of patients that just don't ever catch it. And that'll lead to other things like cancer and fertility issues. Interesting facts. So we could fill 936 cruise ships with all the Americans with celiac. The population of Nevada is equal to the number of people in the US living with celiac. And first degree relatives have a 1 in 10 chance of developing celiac, so we see that genetic connection. Basic anatomy. So on the bottom left photo, this is the lamina propria of the small intestine. We see the macrophage is presenting some gluten, and that's causing the T cell, B cell, and cytokines to be released. The T cells releasing the cytokines, the B cells releasing the antibodies, and that is breaking down the microvilli and separating the cells, which is causing a leaky gut, which causes even more gluten to pass over and cause an immune response. And there's two types. There's classical and non-classical celiacs. Classical is going to be our normal symptoms that we're going to see, and non-classical, you'll see a few less of those symptoms. So they're still under the celiac category, but they're non-classical. Diagnosis and treatment. So an endoscopy and serology test are standard. So endoscopy is going to take a biopsy of the small intestine. A serology is going to be a blood test. There are genetic tests. If you have one copy of one of these genes, you have about a 3% chance of celiac. If you have two copies of either of these genes, about a 10% chance of celiac. Prevention is genetic, so it's predisposed, and it's going to be kind of hard to prevent something like that. Prognosis, you have a pretty good prognosis as long as you're sticking to a gluten-free diet. That's really all you can do. But there is medical treatment that's being studied right now in stage 3 clinical trials. Lorazepam acetate is trying to fix leaky gut and tighten those junctions between the epithelial cells of the small intestine. So we'll see how that turns out. And here's where we're excited. Thank you.